Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another webinar from Octahedroid. I'm very glad of having you here again. Joining me for this occasion are our two accessibility experts. First, our front-end developer, Rosa Lopez. How are you, Rosa?
Fine, thank you, Flavio. And thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to me be here and talk about this topic.
And also, we have David Céspedes, our QA lead, that he will also share his experience in this topic. How are you, David?
Thank you, Flavio. Great, doing well, and very happy to be here with you.
We will be talking about a very specific topic that maybe it's in the mind of a lot of people. The topic is, what's the real price of ignoring web accessibility? Basically, what we will cover are going to be four main areas, like how the accessibility world has changed, the pillars of accessible experiences, how to go from assessment to implementing these best practices, and also a little bit of our real world process, like how do we implement this with clients and our proprietary approach to tackle these projects in the work that we do. But let's dive in with one of the main questions about web accessibility. And this is mainly for you, Rosa. You are one of our experts in this topic in the company. You are the one that has been working more with this topic. So I'm really curious about your take on how has accessibility changed over the past decade, and have companies pay more attention to this topic, or are they still ignoring it a lot? What do you think in your experience?
What I think related with this is over the last decade, most of the companies saw as accessibility as something that you had to do, something like just only to follow the rules. And now I think more people understand that is about creating better experience for everyone. So I think we've moved from just trying to meet requirements to really think about how usable and inclusive a site is, for example. And they
Yeah.
say even though more teams talk about accessibility today, no all of them take action yet. And I think some companies are only are starting now, but others don't focus on it until they get some kind of problem related with it, like compliant or face legal issues.
Yeah, I understand. Like, yeah, the shift has also been from something that uh, most companies tackle when they, like you say, when they have a problem, to maybe make it a little bit more widespread in the company, and also like stressing the importance of making these tasks not only like the objective of one area, but it's something that has to be across the organization, right? I don't know, David, if you have something to add on this about the multidisciplinary reality of this web accessibility job. Like, what do you
Mm,
think on that regard?
Yeah, actually, it is very important to mention that because nowadays companies are integrated on several roles, and it is better to understand accessibility as a responsibility of the whole team. Here in Octahedroid, we actually do that. We try to involve designers, developers, product managers, in order to have everyone aligned and understanding the real needs behind this. And hence, including accessibility, not only as something that we need to measure and just something that we need to comply to, but actually something that needs to be addressed from the conception of the product.
Mm. Yeah, of course. Yeah, like it's a more comprehensive view of what is accessibility, no? Because like Rosa was saying, like when it started, it was only like this compliance thing. But right now, I think more people are participating in this conversation. More people know about its importance, and at the end of the day, we may think that all of these accessibility efforts are for people that have these, I don't know, like these very um, observable maybe disabilities, or these disabilities that are actually very impactful on their lives. But it doesn't really have to be only for those people, because maybe, I don't know, we're in a spectrum of neurodivergence, or maybe we have an injury or something happened to us. So it's important to keep in mind that it's not only for a certain kind of person that has these disabilities, but also it's actually a spectrum that affects different people at different times, no? But well, talking about that, I wanted to start also the conversation about these four core principles of web accessibility, no? Uh, those are these principles that in practice guide us to know if a content is truly accessible or not. But would you say that complying with these four pillars of accessible experience, and also these very popular guidelines, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or the famous WCAGs, is that the only, Rosa, in your opinion, is that the only thing you would need to have a truly accessible website? Or what would you say makes a website truly accessible rather than just following these guidelines?
I will say no, because follow WCAG's rules and create a complete accessible site are things very different. I mean, the WCAGs are very important, and yeah, it's important to follow the rules, obviously, but we need to do a complex process more complex. So I think compliance is just the beginning, no?
Mm,
And you can follow, for example, you can follow every WCAG rule and still end up with a site that's confusing or frustrating for users.
yeah, of course.
So I think real accessibility means understanding why the guidelines exist and testing in with real world conditions, like for example, using screen readers or navigating
Mm,
only with a keyboard, for example. It's not about checking boxes. It's about making sure people of all disabilities can actually use and enjoy your products or your site.
yeah, of course. David, do you have something to add on this topic?
Yes, yes. Actually, as Rosa was mentioning, this is just not about checking boxes and saying that I comply to every single WCAG that is in there, but we need to also make sure that everything is working the way that users need that to work. For that purpose, we can use screen readers, and we can check that actually the product is being useful, not just because it follows the rules or it just is stick to the guidelines, but
Mm,
because it is actually something that we can use. And also, it is very important to understand that this is not just for, as you were mentioning, Flavio, for people with disabilities, but for people that is using the web in non-traditional ways.
mm,
We need to consider other characteristics of the use, like the context, for example. Uh, when I am driving, I cannot use an application or something in the same way that I am doing that when I am in my desk. I need to
yeah,
use,
of
for example,
course.
a voice assistant. And when we use voice assistants, applications tend to work differently than when we are using a graphic user interface. So we need to consider all this and have this in our mindset just to make sure that we are not just following rules, but actually creating accessible applications.
Yeah, totally. Like at the end of the day, it's about having this human-centered approach, no? Like thinking rather than, yeah, like just um, checking a box, or like a set of rules that we are like actually complying. It's about, okay, like in this situation, like you were saying that example, like everybody has been in a car and they need this voice assistance. Like how can we make it truly accessible for people using the content that way, no? And all the different variants, no? Because I guess you can think of a whole number of cases where you have to think about how your content is accessible to those people using or like, yeah, like reading or consuming your content in non-traditional ways. So yeah, I think it's interesting, that approach, because usually when you read the guidelines, it's very focused on that compliance, but actually the job of doing it right is in a way, thinking that the guidelines are only a part of the whole job. No, it's something that involves more people or more processes, or yeah, like maybe I would say, I would also dare to say that empathy, no, like empathizing with all of these people that suffer disabilities, or like you were saying, they are using the content in non-traditional ways. No, at the end of the day, it's a universal benefit. But talking about how did you put this into action, like I wanted to talk specifically of how do you go from assessment to implementation, maybe more about the process we follow at Octahedroid to make website content truly accessible. Can you tell me like which patterns or which signs can you detect when you see like, okay, this site is truly accessible, or like this site is actually implementing accessibility in a good way, not only like with the guidelines, maybe with this human-centered approach. Rosa, what would you say are those signs when you can say this is a truly accessible website or application?
Oh, yes. Related with that, I think one of the keys is that you going to notice that, for example, the site is, since the design is very accessible. I mean, you can feel that you are inside a clean site or easy to use site, or is predictable. It's not very complex. It's not very noisy.
I don't know if it's something that because you do it constantly, like you can sense it in your experience of the website. No, you know what to look at, and if you get those signs of that you can actually access the content and hear it correctly, read it correctly, and thinking about how all of these users actually interact with it, it's like one of the first signs. No, I would say it's really intuitive. No, because at the end of the day, that's the idea. No, I mentioned the four pillars. We're going to talk a little bit about them in a second, but I wanted to ask David, would you add anything else, like in your experience, what when can you tell that, oh, this website seems like it has good accessibility? Like, what are those signs?
Yeah, well, one of the main signs that I can notice in a website that is focused on accessibility is that they are optimized for screen readers and maybe for different interaction modalities. I mean, we are focusing a lot in screen readers because they are one of the main tools that we use for this, but there can be other ways of interacting with information. Uh, and they may be a little bit more complex, but they are part of what we need actually to do in order to achieve complete accessibility. That is one. And another sign of implementing right accessibility is that we are not overloading the site with a lot of information. And that just doesn't apply for accessibility, but for usability or user experience. I mean,
Mm.
when a website is like overloaded with a lot of information, the cognitive load is like very high for users, and they may not have a good experience when using those sites. So it is something very important to take into account. A simple website presenting the needed information or what is required for the user to complete tasks, and in order to understand the information that is in there, are good signs of accessibility.
It's interesting because at the end of the day, I think that this is a work, accessibility work, like needs a lot of me. I don't know, a lot of attention to detail. Like you really need to know what you're looking at. But once it's done, or the job is well implemented, it should be really intuitive, like to navigate the site, or like getting to the information that you want without any complication, like you were saying about overloading with information or oriented for screen readers. At the end of the day, it's something that the user doesn't have to think about. I think that when the user is thinking, why this isn't this accessible to me, is, I would say, it is one of those signs that I would say that early on tell you if you are doing a good job or not. But talking about, let's go back again to those four pillars that I already mentioned. Those are the four pillars of accessible experience. Rosa, I bet you know them by heart now, and you surely have them tattooed in your brain. But can you tell us a little bit more about what are they, why are they important, and how can we set them in practice?
Yeah, sure. This is a topic that very complex, so I'm going to try to do a resume about it. But yes, exist four principles that are based of web accessibility, and yeah, they help us to make sure that everyone can use a website appropriately, for example. So the principles, the pillars are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And related with the first one, perceivable, this means that user must be able to see or hear or have access the context. And for example, images need to have alt text, or videos needs captions, uh, or for example, text should have good contracts to the people be able to read it, right? So, for example, if someone can't read small gray letters on like background, we have a problem, right?
Yeah.
So related with the next one, operable, this is related with the site. The website must be easy to use. People should be able to move through it, for example, with a keyboard only.
Yeah.
And not it's necessary a mouse for it. So examples
Mm,
examples about it are like buttons and links should be easy to find them and use it. And forms, for example, give clear instructions. That is a common mistake, that forms are not clear, or it's not easy to use it because they aren't the instructions are not clear, or
mm,
yeah. And also, another example is that we needed to provide feedback when something goes wrong. Yeah, those examples are related with operable. The next one, understandable, is related with the people need to understand what they are reading and doing, you know? So that means that we need to use simple words,
mm.
avoid surprises, for example, like have a buttons that are something unexpected, or have buttons that no works. And the last one, related with robust, this is related with the website should work on many different devices and different browsers, for example, with assistive tools like screen readers. And for achieve this is not necessary have a super complex process. It's only follow standard process, like have HTML correct. So to apply this principle, we take every step, like since design, content development, and testing. And yeah, we try always keep different user needs in mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of overlap in these four pillars actually. So sometimes maybe you are watching, you are revising for something perceivable, but you actually realize that the site is not as robust, or maybe you don't understand it. Like summarizing maybe what you say of these four pillars is like perceivable is that you can actually see the text, like there's not any obstacles like visual obstacles or maybe auditory obstacles if you're using a screen reader. The operable is that you can actually go through the website, the different sections. Understandable is, I think, very straightforward, that there's no complex information. I mean, depending on the content and the maybe the audience, no, but the audience that is expected to understand this content has to understand it. And robust is that it doesn't break down, no, basically. I think that was a very comprehensive explanation. Thanks, Rosa. But maybe talking more about your real life experience, no? Because like we were saying, like the guidelines don't reflect everything, no? And as we have stressed a lot during this webinar, it's very important to have your users in mind first, no? And um, like sometimes these principles can fall short of getting us to that place when we can say, ah, this is accessible. Uh, but in this regard of the four pillars, what would you say companies lack? Like, where do they fall short of actually getting to these four pillars?
Related with it, I think the most of the time the companies have problem related with the two first pillars, first perceivable and operable parts.
Yeah.
And this is general. So I mean, if you go to the web and check the websites, you're going to find that exist a lot of errors related with these two pillars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think yeah, for example, they might use text that too light and hard to read, or sometimes forget to add the alt text to images and leave, as like I mentioned before, empty links without explanation. And forums are the forums very often have a lot of problems, and they might forget to add labels to input fields. So people using screen readers don't know what is happening, you know? And
Yeah.
so also many teams think accessibility is only about visuals, about what can I see, and this is an error. But it's also about how things behave and how information is structured. So yeah, and how clear everything is for the user, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It's interesting, no? Like those are the two pillars that most companies lack, and I think, well, I wouldn't say one is more important than another, but I think it like if people cannot actually perceive your content, like you have a very big problem there. But yeah, it happens. But okay, talking more about our process, like I would like to get into that, and also to show how to the audience how we do this in at Octahedroid. Um, in your experience, Rosa, if a client wanted us to help with accessibility in their website, what would that process look like? Could you walk us through it? Like, where would we start if we were auditing a website for accessibility from scratch to actually implementing those principles? Maybe I know it's a very comprehensive process. It varies. It's not the same with every client. But like a general picture, could you tell us how would you approach this request for accessibility in their website or their application?
Yeah, for sure. The general picture, I think we usually start with an initial audit using both automated tools like Lighthouse, because the score of Lighthouse is very, very important, and Wave or another kind of tools. And also we use a custom tool that we have at Octahedroid. That is this tool use Playwright and also has integrate AI to give more detailed results. So yeah, at the same time we use the both process, and then we document the issues that we find and explain what is the meaning of these errors that we are seeing, and after of that we try to prioritize, uh, starting with the most critical problems that block the user, for example, in the site. And after of that we try to start to resolve the problems that are we're going to provide a great impact, you know. So after that we work with the client's team to fix the issues, and we support with manual testing, because QA process is crucial too. And also we use a manual process using screen readers, keyboard only navigation, that is crucial. And yeah, we try to simulate real scenarios.
Okay, yeah, it's a very comprehensive approach. But I actually find it's really interesting this hybrid approach that we have. Well, you have basically for like the automation or this manual testing, because as you said, it's also important to have a human in the loop yet. But I would be curious, how has this process changed with AI? I don't know if on the operational side, David, maybe you can give us a little bit of insight or how we are integrating this AI into this process and how has it changed, like from before that we didn't use it to now?
Yes, of course. Actually, as Rosa was mentioning, we started creating some tools that took advantage of automation for making it easier for us to do the audits. Like we took advantage of the use of Playwright. We also tried using Cypress, but we preferred Playwright because of some specific technical reasons. But then we noticed that there were some tests that actually needed to go a little farther in what we needed to actually evaluate. And that's when we started using artificial intelligence for trying to determine if some things are behaving or are created as they are supposed to. Like, for example, we can start determining, according to the context in a web page, if the text in a link is meaningful for that. We try to avoid generic text in the links like read more or discover more or something like that. But how do we know that something is meaningful? And that's when artificial intelligence takes place and help us actually to determine that. Uh, uh, there are some other examples like similar to that, but that is when we started using actually artificial intelligence. What we noticed there is that a process that took up to weeks for doing the audit of a website started to take some minutes because of the artificial intelligence use. We drive these initial evaluations because we need, as Rosa was mentioning, to then add another round of manual testing. We start using voice assistants and screen readers, and then we go deeper in the evaluation. But this is a good point to start, and this is saving a lot of time, and also it is helping us to understand the current status of a website, taking advantage of those kind of tools.
It's interesting that actually the process is not that the process that we do change. It's more like it was enhanced, and I would say that it also accelerated, like you were saying, like it shortened the time to do certain tasks, but it also gives us more specific things or things that maybe a human eye it takes more maybe more time or more effort to detect. So it's interesting how we are balancing where the human approach is the best approach and the AI approach is the other way to go. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I would bet that it depends also on the client, no, and maybe on the project, but it's interesting.
Yeah, we are trying to make better use of the time of our people here in the company. So this is where we use artificial intelligence in things that can be actually automated and do not really need that expertise from our team.
Yeah.
For other things that actually need that, we still rely on humans.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, I think it's very valuable for the clients that we work with. If any of the people listening or watching this webinar is interested in knowing more about this process, we can have a custom demo for you where we can show you our AI integration. Right now is not the scope of this webinar, but you can contact us in our website and you can learn more about that. But well, talking about in general, like this business impact and the challenges that maybe this implementation takes, like um, because maybe some businesses that are their website is not accessible or their app is not one of the priorities to make accessible their content. Maybe there are some, or maybe there are a lot, no? Like Rosa could tell us that maybe there are a lot of companies that think this is not as important. But talking about these businesses that are trying to implement for the first time web accessibility, or maybe improving their score, or making actually all of their content truly accessible, what would be the tangible business benefits of following these accessibility best practices, Rosa? What's the impact of web accessibility on companies in general?
I think, yeah, there are many real benefits for businesses. I think the first one is related with legal part because if you pay attention to implement the accessibility, you're going to reduce the risk of lawsuits or complaints. And yeah, this is very important because they are very expensive, the problems related with this part, you know.
Yes, of course.
The other one is related with cost efficiency because I noticed that many clients want to start to implement accessibility once the site is finished, is complete, or the product in general is complete. And this is okay, but when when this scenario happens, you're going to start to do a lot of rework in all your teams, since design, development, QA. This is very expensive. So the best scenario is start thinking in accessibility since the beginning, from the idea. But yeah, many times this is not possible. But yeah, I think we need to try to implement it as soon as possible, you know. And also, I think the last part is related with you're going to have more retention, user retention, if your site looks feels like an accessible site, because if users feel comfortable using your site, they're more likely to stay longer, come back, or recommend it to other persons. So yeah, I think, yeah, these points are very good. And the last one, I think, is related with if you implement accessibility, you're going to improve also another things like SEO, performance, and usability for everyone. So not just for people with disabilities.
Yeah, right. No, it can impact from this legal aspect to this I would say like content marketing aspect too, no? Like it's true that you need these meta descriptions and these tags that actually help content be discovered and actually used. But I would say that it can become more important now we are living in an AI world that is also like sometimes to have this structure of the information maybe can also help people discover that content. Maybe I'm going on a tangent here, but I think it's yeah like the impact that it has. Maybe it can be something that also impacts in the future of the company. No, like with all these changes in technology, it's not only one aspect. So yeah, thanks for that, Rosa. I don't know, David, if you want to add something about this business benefits for companies following accessibility guidelines.
Yeah, sure. For starters, you will be able, when you implement accessibility in your website, you will be able to reach audiences that otherwise will be excluded. So just this can help you to actually have better presence and get to people that could be potential customers and that were being excluded previously. So that is very important. But also, when you are using analytics in your website, you can start to get different metrics and you can start to get different information. But it is not until you are completely sure that you're implementing accessibility that you can also like really understand what that is telling you, because you can get, like, for example, information about one of your pages that is having a lot of traffic, but suddenly people just do not know what to do or where to go from there, and you just lose that interaction. So when you implement accessibility in that web page and you are sure of that, you can start really analyzing why that behavior is happening. That could be because people are accessing your website in a non-traditional way, and they are actually getting lost because you're missing a description, or they just not know how to proceed using a screen reader. Um, and on the other hand, if you have implemented accessibility, then you can start to work in different ways of solving that issue, because you are going to be like completely sure that it is not what is impacting, but it may be something different. So when you have more information and you have more data about how your interaction is happening, you can take better decisions.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's not only one area of the business that is impacted, no? Like I was saying, like if you take into consideration everything that you're saying, it's actually really, really important, no? And it's we shouldn't think it as a second thought, like Rosa was saying, because if not, there's gonna be a lot of rework, and probably all the things, all of that that you saved supposedly is not gonna be it's actually not actually a smart investment, no. Like it would be better to use those resources to actually do it well from the beginning and see how you have all of this information. You can reach people that otherwise wouldn't access this content. So yeah, it's very important. And just to wrap up on this topic, like what would you say are like the most common roadblocks organization face when trying to implement this? Like, or what would we things what things could these companies start implementing now to actually make their websites accessible? Like, what would you say on that regard, Rosa?
Yeah, related with roadblocks, I think one big challenge is thinking on accessibility like a thing that you have to do once, because
Mm,
many companies are want to do this process but only once, and that's it. And yeah, I think this is a very big mistake, because accessibility is really an ongoing process. You know, you have even the companies actually that has success in this topic related with accessibility and implementation. They try to to have accessibility part like a part of the culture. And so yeah, do this process only once is not a good idea. And another issue, I think, is assigning this task to just one person. I think David mentioned it at the beginning of the meeting. So, but this is a real process, a real problem that is very common. So yeah, related with this point, I think the team, all the team needs should be part of this task. Finally, I think when you want to implement accessibility, you're going to have a learning curve. So the team needs time to support, to understand accessibility best practices, because sometimes people want to start to do the implementation, but if the foundations are not enough strong, exist a lot of errors related with the bad implementation of accessibility.
yeah, not having those things in place can really be costly for enterprises, I assume. Thanks, Rosa. Would you add anything else, Dave? Like any other recommendations for companies to start implementing accessibility?
Yeah, sure. In the recommendations, we could list to understand that you can follow a flexible approach, uh, because we have guidelines, but those guidelines should not be implemented in only one way. There are different ways to actually achieve accessibility. So just keep an open mind and try to actually get involved into understanding the real problem to propose solutions that better work for you while complying to the guidelines. That is something that is very important. And also, as Rosa was mentioning, when we understand that this is a process that involves everyone within the company, we can start to having accessibility in all the workflows and being considered since the beginning or conception of a project. And in that way, we can actually start to have single source of truth that actually consider accessibility as part of them. For example, if you have your design team and you consider accessibility in the requirements for your design team, you will try to make sure that the design is actually complying with guidelines. And if you achieve that, you are not going to have big trouble when trying to communicate this to developers and so on as the process flows. So I think that is a good recommendation to actually consider accessibility since the beginning of the project, and then try to make sure that you are complying in every single step of that project.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to know that and to also implement that approach, no? Because like we were talking about, we have been talking a lot about these guidelines, and maybe they are yeah, like talking about very specific things that you have to address, but those things can be achieved in very different ways. And as we have stressed, is a problem that not only one person can resolve. No, this is like a task that involves multiple areas of expertise, and when we have that in mind from the beginning, I think it makes the job easier. No, because it's a task that cannot be done from only one person. No, like it's a team effort. But thank you very much for that. We're getting to the end of this webinar, but I wanted to wrap up with some reflections on the future of web accessibility. No, like it's I suppose it's a very interesting world. Like everything is changing now with AI, and sometimes it's hard to predict the future in this environment when everything changes so fast. But maybe talking about the near future, what Rosa, what do you think is the future of web accessibility? Like, where are we going with web accessibility? What does the future hold for this area in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think accessibility will become something essential, like QA process, like dev process, or security. I think we are already seeing more and more legal pressure around the world related with this topic. And yeah, the people want to have a good user experience using sites. Yeah, this is the correct one. So yeah, I think in and tech advances, people expect more and more inclusive experiences. So related with the point with I think yeah, AI will help a lot. I think both in detecting issues and suggesting fixes. And I think everything will be very, very fast, but also we still need human control, to, for example, simulate the real world scenarios. And yeah, it's necessary to make the right design decisions. So also, for example, personalization and accessibility, I think are starting to overlap, and things like dark mode, font size adjustment, or content simplification help everyone and will likely become the standard. So people is the expected. I think this is what is going to happen in the future related with accessibility is going to be a expected part. And yeah.
Yeah. From what I'm getting of what you said right now, it's like, yeah, it's gonna be more important. Like this legal pressure is gonna grow because of that, because more people are aware of it, and AI is only gonna accelerate that, no? Both in uh, the awareness of accessibility, but also in this implementation, and also in making it as this fundamental area as all other areas in web development, like QA and things like that. So yeah, I think it's a bright future that you're seeing for accessibility. I agree with you. I hope that's the case too. I don't know if you have anything to add on that regard, Dave.
Yeah. Well, the way in which people is interacting with the internet is changing.
Mm,
Uh, People from our generation are used to open an internet browser, a web browser, enter a search criteria, and start navigating from there. And nowadays, the new generations are starting to have a different behavior. They use artificial intelligence agents for most of their research and navigation even. So they start entering some criterion or prompts in there. So these changes may result on an actual change in the paradigms of how the web is built and also how the information is consumed. So I think that in the near future, we will start to think about accessibility not only for humans, but also for artificial intelligence agents.
mm.
I think that is going to be a very, very interesting topic because we are going to be focused on creating content and creating an experience, not only for humans, but for also those agents, and try to make sure that our content is being ready to be consumed using voice assistants and any other modalities of interaction. So I think that it is going to be a very, very interesting future for the implementation of this in the web.
Yeah. And talking about that, like the future where we have to make accessible the content to AI agents and all these AI tools, is starting to happen, but I think it's gonna be something that is gonna increase in the future, which makes Rosa's point stronger about making a web, not thinking that web accessibility is just a one-time task, no? Like it's something that it evolves and it changes, and now with this world changes, with this AI changes, we have to have in mind, we need to uh, actually assess the best way to actually cover those criteria. But it's interesting. Yeah, I think it's a field that is gonna have a lot of changes and interesting implementations, and it's gonna be, just as Rosa said, as more important than before, no? But well, basically, before we end the session, I just wanted to talk about a few takeaways that I'm getting from today's session. Basically, this shift of accessibility, no, like it started from this compliance burden for to companies, that maybe government companies or very specific companies, very um, companies that had to follow a lot of guidelines, to actually being seen as this, well, competitive advantage, but also this user experience advantage. No, if you have an accessible website, you are thinking of your users and how they can interact better with your content. And that's also another point that I want to make. Like, true accessibility goes beyond checklists. Like, you cannot just follow these rules and think that your website is accessible or your application is accessible. No, you have to change a lot from the mindset, the culture of your team, and actually having this approach that in our case is this hybrid approach between automation and human interaction, where you truly can validate that your website is accessible. um, and also, like, it's very important nevertheless to have the four WCAG principles in mind: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Because even though they not cover everything that is that accessibility has to cover, at the end of the day are the our light forward, no? Like they tell us where to go and how to practically improve these accessibility guidelines, no? And yeah, like in that same regard, assessment is just a start. It's a whole process. It involves a lot of different people in the team. But basically, at the end of the day, it's an investment that pays off, no? Not only in this user satisfaction or making your content more discoverable. At the end of the day, like they was saying, it gives you information, business information, or also what Rosa was saying too. It allows you to actually make this experience like more human, more approachable. At the end of the day, it's also a task of empathy, no? And thinking of all those people that you are leaving out if you are not making your content accessible. So this was a very informative talk. Thank you both for being here. I hope the audience learned a lot, as much as I learned from today. And if you are looking to take the next step or need a partner to help bring accessibility to your website, don't hesitate to contact us. Octahedroid is here to help. Just reach us out at octahedroid.com and get in touch with us, and we will be more than happy to help. And maybe you can talk directly to Rosa and David for your next web accessibility project. And with that note, thank you very much, you both, for being here again. I hope we can repeat this again in the future and maybe talk more about AI. But for this session, I think it was very, very instructive. Thank you both for that.
Thank you so much, Flavio.
Thank you, Flavio.
And thank you so much for joining us today, to the rest of you, and see you on the next time. Bye-bye.